Hi, welcome back. I'm Trina Boice, and today I have a very special guest who is a publicist and the founder of More PR Group. Today's guest is Michelle Moore.
Hi. Yeah, thank you. Thanks
for joining me. I'm excited to have you here. And I love your last name because you can do so many play on words. With More, it's great for any business. You're so lucky.
Well, thank you. It did take me a long time to figure out that I could have a play on words, but nonetheless, yeah, and I've used it. I say we now because I've grown and I've expanded. I have additional writers and project managers and stuff because we've just, been lucky enough and fortunate enough to have so many different opportunities to help people gain PR for whatever projects that they're working on. So yeah, so it's the More PR Group because for the longest time it was Michelle Moore PR, and it just got to a point where I needed help. And so it's never about me. It's about everyone, a village that comes together, a dream team, as I like to call it sometimes, that come together to help clients and projects and campaigns succeed.
Well, and it's perfect because people want more PR, whether they're an author, a filmmaker, or speaker or whatever.
Yes.
So tell us, we have people who watch this channel who maybe are authors who want help with publicity, how to get their books out into the hands of readers. We have filmmakers who watch this movie, and I'm movie review mom. I'm obsessed.
You're amazing.
I review movies, and filmmakers need PR. And I know you and I have worked together on several projects together with that. Also, we have people who want to possibly break into the publicity business. So I wanted to get your advice on all of that kind of stuff.
Perfect.
Whoops. So go ahead, take it away.
You bet. Well, and I thank you. That's a huge platform to talk about. So I want to just kind of tell you where my roots are. So I, and this is going to take you back a couple of decades. We'll just stay at a couple. It's probably more than a couple. But back when I was in high school, one of the things that I was really involved in was debate. And
I was too.
Were you?
Debate team? Yeah.
Yes. I loved it. So oratory, Lincoln Douglas team, all in extemp, all of it. We just had a great team. I had a great high school teacher, our coach, and then I went on to college and debated on the college circuit also, and have just an amazing experience with my coach also on a collegiate level.
What college did you go to?
I went to CEU, which at the time was a junior college, but it was ranked number 4 in junior colleges across the nation. So
wow, because I debated in college too. I went to BYU.
Okay.
So we didn't compete against each other.
No, we didn't. And I, if there's one of those regrets in life, I had an offer to ASU afterwards, and I didn't take that. But anyways, it propelled me into the career that I'm at, though. So I definitely like to give credit to just all of those coaches and teachers that helped me through high school and college just to kind of become confident in speaking to the public and presenting, pitches and things like that. So right out of college, I went and started working for, and this is going to take you back to the 90s, but for a company called Gold Leaf Press. They also did Aspen Books, and they were part of the Publishers Distribution Group. If you remember, in Utah back in the 90s, they published the book Embraced by the Light by Betty Eady, and Rennell Wallace was another author that was my first intro to publishing.
Wow. And what an interesting book to begin with.
Oh, it was. And it was right during that kind of era, I guess, of spirituality, near-death experiences,
right.
Just that communication really was coming to the forefront. And I consider myself really fortunate to be able to have been kind of on that leading edge, and working for a publisher that was making, little Utah publisher that had national and international, relationships, and it was just a great starting block for me. But I was in publishing.
That was one of the, well, not the first near-death experience book that I had read, because I'm really fascinated in that topic, but it had expanded so much information than I had ever read before, kind of life-changing stuff. I mean, literally, obviously for her. Anyway, fantastic book if you haven't read it. We highly recommend it. Really
Yeah,
interesting, somewhat controversial, but really
for
interesting.
sure.
Anyway, go on.
Yeah, and so that was kind of my first, intro to it. And I was really more of just an author liaison. I wouldn't even say that I was doing PR at that point. They needed just someone else to kind of travel. We actually had hired out publicists from New York and LA that were running the different PR campaigns. And so I was just there making sure we were getting to our appointments on time, getting checked into the hotels, conventions, that kind of stuff. And so one day in the office, I was just at the Xerox copy machine. I mean, this is so old school, this is back in the 90s where you had an office room where you get supplies. And anyways, I'm making copies, and all of a sudden I hear that noise from the fax machine. Do you remember those noises, like an incoming fax, right? So I may or may not have snooped at what was coming through, but it was an invoice from our, and I'm early 20s at this point. It was an invoice from our publicist in New York for her retainer. And I was blown away. I'm not going to lie. I was blown away at the amount that we were paying monthly for a retainer. So I went into my boss a couple of weeks later and I just said, I want to do this. I want a book that I can do PR for. And so the first book that I ever did PR for was Leading the Charge with Lee Roderick. It was Orrin Hatch's book back long
I
time
remember that
ago.
one too.
But Leading the Charge, I did like a Utah campaign, and I just loved it. I was able to take the skills that I had learned in communicating and talking to people, pitching ideas, and finding out what the media wanted, what type of story they wanted. And, from there, I've worked freelance for lots of self-published authors. I ended up working for Betty Eadie's company, Onjinjinka Press was the name of it, and we launched 10 or 15 national books in the late 90s. And I did work at Deseret Book for about 3.5 years. And so I was able to work with many of their amazing, talented authors and, production teams and stuff too. So that's kind of, as far as my publishing background, like that's where I come from. That's kind of my backstory of working in publishing. And as you'd mentioned, I've transferred over to film. I'm probably in my 6th or 7th year doing film PR, and released over 25 different movies. That's either theatrical or streaming or DVDs. And I love what I do.
Wow, what a fantastic job. So what advice would you have for someone who would love to duplicate what you've just done with your career? How would you get started as being a publicist? Maybe in addition to working with a company to get your feet wet, if they wanted to start their own company, what would you recommend?
Yeah, there's a lot of freelance publicists. And I think that the best way that you can get started is just kind of mirror campaigns. Like, look and see what other people are doing successfully. There's a lot of, do-it-yourself type campaigns, or you can log on all the time and say, how do I get free PR? But there's definitely a technique to it, I guess, is maybe the best word, and it's relationships. So what I tell any of my new clients, if we're just doing consulting calls, is wherever you're at, like, identify the top 10 media outlets that you want to be on. So if you're in Utah, identify those. If you're in California, identify those. And start, and this is Michelle's, 101. So I have done some national hits back, when we were working with national titles. When I was at Deseret Book, we worked on Anne Romney's, the cookbook, her cookbook.
Oh, wow.
And I was more, I was not the lead publicist on that. We definitely had a New York company that did that. But just to follow was amazing, the type of national coverage you can get. But the thing that I find the authors don't always realize is that if your book isn't in distribution nationwide, then it doesn't do a lot of good to have a whole bunch of national hits, because the consumer doesn't know exactly how to, find you per se.
Right.
So my best advice for a publicist that's looking to get into this career is to get to know, a minimum of 10 of your local media personalities and their producers. And then that will help you, you then become recognizable to them.
That's a really good point. And obviously, starting local makes a lot of sense. Of course, most authors want their books to be published worldwide,
Yes.
but I think starting local is a really good tip.
Yes.
What
And,
about for an author who maybe just has their first book and doesn't have a budget for a publicist? Would you recommend the same thing, approaching some of these local media outlets and trying to get interviewed and that kind of thing?
so yes and no. Like I have worked with some people that just wanted to bootstrap it and do it themselves, and um, they have done more damage than good in some cases because they
Oh,
don't know how to talk to the media. I've actually had and again, I've been in this industry for 20 plus years, and specifically Utah. Like I feel like I have a very good relationship with all of the key Utah um, reporters, interviewers, producers, editors. And there's been a couple of times where some of them have reached out to me and they're like, "Hey, is so and so your client?" And I'll say, "No, what's going on?" And they tell me these horror stories of people that just are, I like to think the best of everyone. So I think that they're tenacious, but there's just, there's an appropriateness on how to pitch the media, and, showing up right before, and, they go on air or right on deadlines and asking to speak to them, and, trying to get a meeting with them is not the best way. So if you are going to try to do it yourself, build that relationship first. And you can build that through LinkedIn. You can build that through Facebook. You can do that even through emails. You can watch their show or read an article and just send them an email and just say, "Hey, thank you so much for this. I loved your insight on, this article," or "I love the interview today on this station." Just everyone likes to be validated, and they like to know, especially in the news, that they're covering something that their consumers or their viewers or their readers are enjoying, that it's hitting the mark for them. So that's where I would start.
yeah, that's really great advice. And I actually looked at your website and looked at some of the testimonials, and over again, people were saying she knows how to prep her people. They come, let's say they're going to do a TV interview or radio or whatever. You prep that person because
Yeah.
you're right. There is a way to present yourself and to speak to those types of people. So obviously, kudos to you. You're doing all of the right things, obviously. So that's a really good tip. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So, in terms of um, filmmaking and a director, for example, do you take a different approach with a film, or is it kind of the same process that you would take for an author for getting a book out versus getting a movie out?
Sure. The fun thing about film is that you have a lot of different people that you can work with, right? So when you're working with a book, you have basically the author, and that's who, is doing the talking and presenting the materials and stuff. But on film, you now have potentially actors, directors, cinematographer, writers, producers, you have all the different angles. So for me, film is a little bit more difficult because you have to create additional stories depending on who you're pitching. And no, I love it. And this year has been amazing. We've had back to back to back to back releases. And so I've been very fortunate to have tons of work in doing that. But as a publicist, I've had to become really creative on which stories we're telling. Because the last thing you want also is each of the news outlets to have the same story, right? Like earned media is there for a purpose, and that is to reach different audiences. So if the story that I've pitched and the segment that I've built for ABC is the same one that runs on Fox and CBS and NBC, you've lost an opportunity to tell a different story that pertains to the campaign or to the release, to the publication, whatever that is. So I love the fast pace of film, and I love working with so many different, stories and people.
That's another excellent point, and that is the narrative of what you're pitching.
Yeah.
That it is all about storytelling. And I coach authors to do some marketing. If they want to do it themselves, there's things they can do, or they could call you. But it's creating a platform and a story and a unique voice that people are interested in. People don't want to just hear about another book about romance or another,
Yes.
just yet one more. But if there's a platform or even a charity or a cause that's connected to it, then people are interested in listening. So thank you
Right.
for mentioning that point as well. And by the way, Michelle is going to be one of our guest speakers at the LDS PMA conference coming up this month in October at BYU on the campus. And give us a little sneak peek of what you're going to be sharing with whoever wants to go. And tickets are still available, by the way. But whoever comes to the conference in your class, what are they going to learn?
I love presenting. I probably love presenting as much as I love pitching to media. And the reason why is I want to help people get off on the right foot. When I worked, when I did freelance in publishing, there were so many times where I would find people that had mortgaged their home, maxed their credit cards, sold their cars, just so that they could print books that were sitting in their garage, right? Like this is back in the 90s before print on demand. And it was it broke my heart. Like it really broke my heart because so many of them is like, okay, I have this book. Why aren't they selling? And they just didn't understand. They were called. I feel like they were called to get their story out, and share this with people, but they had no idea of the marketing plan behind it. So what I'm going to do in the class is just kind of structure what marketing plans look like. And there's so many different ways that you can, get publicity. There's different types of publicity. So there's, TV, there's print, there's online, there's influencers, there's bloggers, there's radio, there's podcasts, there's, social media, obviously. Like there's so many different platforms and you have to decide which one's going to be best for you. So I'm hopefully going to take the audience through kind of the ups and downs of it, the do's and don'ts of it. And I'm hopeful that when they walk out, they have, 2 or 3 pages of notes on things that they can immediately implement or, or talk to me afterwards. I think that's always my fun moment is just doing some quick brainstorming with people after I present.
That sounds fantastic. And I'm going to be in your
excited.
class taking
Awesome.
notes. That's
You'll
great.
have a lot. Yes.
Okay, so quickly tell us about your website, and do you offer free consultations or they pay you for an hour of your time to get all they can out of you, or how do you work with new clients that are interested?
Yes. So the benefit of PR is that you are as good as your work, right? So I've been fortunate enough to have a steady flow of clients, and it's based on repeat business and then referral business. So I have toyed with the idea of offering, free consultations or doing eventually want to just have like a day a week or something that people can sign up. And because I love that interpersonal brainstorming. I love hearing about people's stories. And like I said at the beginning, I just want to help people be on the right foot. So people should come to my website often. It's not a feature we offer right now, but it is in the works that we would be doing free consultation. I have one of our project managers is amazing with social media. And so she, we've talked and I think her and I will probably start doing some consulting for her. So, or for different clients. But I would say that the best thing is to really identify what it is that you're looking for and still just send me an email. You can reach out to me through social media. My email's on the website. And even though it's not like a feature or campaign, that doesn't mean that I wouldn't love to just set up a phone call with somebody and talk to them. So.
Okay, good. And your website will be written down here below.
And it's easy, moreprgroup.com.
Yeah, I love that name. That's so great.
Yeah.
All right, before we go, any last little tips you want to leave for maybe a new author or even a filmmaker on something that they might not be aware of even that they need to be doing? Like, should they set out a press release? Or should they just focus on social media? Or should they invest in an influencer? Or what are the things that you think are working really well now that they need to be aware of?
So I would say the most successful campaigns I've been on have a component of each of those. So, and that's why I call it kind of the dream team, right? You can't just send out a press release if you don't have a social media backing, because many times the media will receive a press release and they go right on to see what your online presence looks like. So you've got to just kind of make sure that all of those, you know, are in a row. And they're all important. So it's one of those things like, you know, tell me which child you love the most. And I can't really tell you. My children would probably debate you and they would say, no, she loves so-and-so more than so-and-so. But the truth is, and if they're listening, the truth is I love all my children the exact same. And I love my campaigns all the same way too, you know, and I feel that if you're just starting out in this as an author or a filmmaker, or you have a product that you want to launch, be very, very clear on what your why is. I'm very clear on what my why is. I know every morning when I wake up what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And I think that when you are laser focused like that, that just amazing things will happen, things fall into place, and opportunities just kind of present themselves, and be open to that. There's so many people that I ran into, and you know, we're talking specifically PR and marketing, and there's a lot of just like in the box, right, type marketing that happens, and some of those tactics are good and you should be doing it. I sometimes call it low-hanging fruit, like it's stuff that you want to pick and you want to do, but don't limit yourself to that, you know, expand and grow. Some of the amazing filmmakers that I've been working with recently, they see that vision, and I've had the opportunity to kind of, you know, push through some of the walls and get some good results. So that's been fun for me.
That's great advice as well. You're just so full of great advice. Yeah, you know, I actually flew out to Utah to be a guest presenter at the FanX comic convention.
Yes.
And while I don't read comic books, I obviously review the movies based on them. So it was a bit of a stretch, but I really wanted to go because it just looked like a really fun event. I wasn't sure, you know, what it was going to do for me personally or professionally, I should say. But I met so many amazing people and made some great relationships and connections that have now spun off into other directions. And so I love that you said, be open-minded, opportunities will come, and they might not be in that box that you expect, but that's just half of the fun of the journey, is exploring new opportunities and ideas.
And you never know where it turns. I worked with one of my, I have so many favorite movies also. That's another thing. You couldn't really pin me down on what was my favorite movie that I've worked on, but I have a lot of respect for many, many filmmakers. One of them that I worked with, his name's Isaac Halasima, and he did the movie The Last Descent.
Oh, rip your heart out, man.
Right? Yes, because you reviewed that. Yes. So it is
really well done movie, but oh, just my goodness. Okay, go on.
Yes, it's intense. It's one that you have, I mean, if you see it in the big, you know, in the theater in that big, anyways, we digress, but that is an amazing film. But my point in sharing that is that on the team that I worked with on Last Descent, there was another man that was part of our marketing team. And we had a great relationship. You know, we did a great job for that film. And 2 years later, he calls me on doing some PR for product. I hadn't done product PR in a very long time, but then he's hired me for a couple of campaigns. He has his own video creation company, and some of his clients needed earned media. And so you never know where those out of the box, you know, moments might happen based on your in the box relationships. And so, you know, people just, again, you know, whoever this is for, whether it's you're a beginner, whether you're a veteran, there's opportunities to be had if you put yourself out there too, and just kind of network through that.
Right. Network and put yourself out there. Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Michelle, so much. Be sure and subscribe to this channel and hunt down Michelle Moore also, so that you can continue to have conversations with Michelle. Again, check out the website links. And thank you for visiting and spending some time with us today, Michelle.
You bet. I loved it. So thank you for the invitation.
Okay. Well, thank you. Bye for now.